Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Reverend G. I am Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Reverend G. And I'm here every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. live on WEMS Radio. We're on Facebook and we're also on YouTube. This week, I'm coming to you with a very special guest. As always, my guests, they have different perspectives on life, and we talk about love, life, and we talk about spirituality. We talk about spirituality from a practical point of view. How does it support you in your everyday life? We talk about the spiritual toolkit. What practices are in your spiritual toolkit? We hope that we leave you each week with resources and information and ways that you can live your best life with grace and ease. You can find me every day on Facebook as Reverend Grenetta Mason. I'm on Instagram as Rev Grenetta. Tonight, I have a special guest, Cynthia Thames. Cynthia is a peer counselor. She also hosts and produces a, a radio show on BronxNet called Mental Health and You. She's also a creative. I'm really excited about having Cynthia here on the show tonight to share with you. Welcome, Cynthia.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend G. Welcome, welcome. But one little thing, you upgraded me. It's not a radio show quite yet. It's a TV show. Okay, it's a TV show.
Oh, okay.
I'm working on it. I'm working. I want to get where you are, Reverend G, but I'm working on it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for
I'm
allowing
excited.
me to be on. Thank you for your invitation and
Yes,
your wonderful introduction.
yes. I'm excited to have you here. Well, why don't you, on that note, introduce yourself, and let people know who you are and what you're currently doing.
Well, as you so eloquently stated, I am a peer counselor. I
Hmm.
presently work as a peer counselor in NYC, but I'm also the host and producer of Mental Health and You on BronxNet and YouTube. Mental Health and You is a monthly show that helps to hopefully get rid of the stigma, eliminate the stigma of mental wellness, particularly in communities of color, from a peer perspective. Now, why from a peer perspective? Because I'm a peer counselor. What's a peer counselor or peer specialist, as some people may call us? A peer counselor, peer specialist is someone with their own history in the mental health field as a consumer. So I bring the word, I bring words of inspiration, words of hope to those who I serve, whether on air or in person. This is what I'm dealing with. This is what I've dealt with. This is what has helped me. And there's hope on the other side from a peer perspective.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's really interesting because in being able to tell your story, people can relate to your story and you can support them from a place where they feel connected. When people
Yes.
feel that they can trust you or that you can know their story, they feel more connected. So I think that's really great because I thought about when I first saw Pure, I used to do peer counseling with youth. So we would train youth to go out to their peers, right? And this was the time we were doing it around HIV and AIDS back then. So
Mm.
we had peer to peer training for youth. And so that's what came to my mind in the beginning. But I really appreciate the way the whole peer counseling from the perspective of this was a part of your life. So now, as that, you could share with others.
Yes.
Um,
And it's been good. It's been not always easy, but it's been good and it's been necessary. And it's been one of the joys of my life.
Mhm. So what take us through a journey of what that might look like. for people listening?
Well, the journey is that I'm someone who, as I stated, was a consumer, is a consumer of mental health services, as in therapy, as in taking medication. I have a history of depression and anxiety, like so many people. So I talk about that. What I can do, maybe that my clinician colleagues can't do, is become personal, get personal about my story and how it has the tools that I have put in my wellness box over the years that has helped me. Uh, but I can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
I deal with depression. I deal with anxiety. Has medication has helped me. Therapy has helped me. And what are the other tools that has helped me? Having my show has helped me. Being able to come on shows like yourself and go out into the public and talk. My hobbies, my supports. What are all the things in your your wellness box? Besides medication. This is not a substitute for medication and therapy, but this is what are the other things that bring wholeness and fullness to your life that maybe you have gotten away from. That's peer support. And I show them, at least I hope to show them through my own example, an example of my fellow peers that yes, there's hope on the other side of depression. There's hope on the other side of anxiety, on the other side of despair. You know, it's not the end of it, but there's hope on the other side because there's always something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what comes to mind for me is in thinking about how to support,
Yes.
how can friends and family support? Because at a point, when we talk about therapy and going to therapy and the cost of it, the finding of a therapist, in the meantime, what can we do as friends and family to support our people?
Well, listen,
Mm-hmm.
create a sense of empathy, compassion. Stop putting labels on us. Oh, as in weakness. Oh, she goes to therapy. Or he goes to therapy. I'm not going to do that. Black folks don't do that. We don't do that.
But how do we change that though? See, that what comes to mind for me is
Yeah.
that has been just ingrained so much in
Yes.
what we've heard and what we do. How do we change that? What would be what steps are being taken, or what can we do to just really remove that? And sometimes I think people like peer, as I say, being a peer counselor, letting people know that it's
Yes.
okay. But
Yeah.
what things have you seen in ways that you think that we can start to have this become common in our communities and okay?
Well, you can start by listening to shows like yourself,
Hmm.
watching shows like mine's, Mental Health and You on BronxNet,
Hmm.
uh, learning what peer support is about,
Hmm.
finding a peer in your community, reaching out to support groups of various sorts, forming partnerships with organizations, with groups. We have to it seems in my experience, take the stigma out some sort of way by talking about it, understanding it. And how do you do that? By compassion, showing some compassion, creating some empathy, realizing somewhere down the road that it's okay to ask for help. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you, I dare say, crazy. It doesn't, but it's a sign of strength.
Hmm.
I knew for myself, I knew, Reverend, that I needed to speak to somebody.
Mhm.
I needed to talk
Mhm.
because I just couldn't go on as I was going on, dealing with so much as we all do at various points of our life, whether it's loneliness,
Mhm.
which the pandemic has really exposed a
Yeah.
lot. A lot
Mhm.
of us are lonely.
Mhm.
This feeling of despair,
Mhm.
depression, anxiety.
Mhm.
I know these are not new feelings. The pandemic, though, has brought a lot of it out and exposed a lot, as it has exposed so much.
Mhm.
But that's where peer support comes from, your support line, your
Mhm.
faith-based organization,
Mhm.
friends who are supportive, family who are supportive, organizations that's out there.
Mhm. And that's one of the messages I think that we want to get out to people, right? It's
Yes.
really about reaching out for support.
And
And
what does mental health? I want the Reverend G. What
Mhm.
does mental wellness mean to you, but beyond the traditional modalities of it? But what does mental wellness? What is it in your life that brings you a joy, brings
Mhm.
you a happiness, a wholeness
Mhm.
that maybe you get away from?
Mhm.
That gives you a sense of mental health, of mental wellness.
Mhm.
Yes, there's medication, there's therapy, but what is it? What else? Is it your faith? Is
Mhm.
it writing?
Mhm.
Is it taking a walk?
Mhm.
Picking up a good book to read, watching movies. What is it in your life? A support group of some sort. I know peers who love knitting and crocheting. All of these are forms of support. I
Mhm.
think I shared with you, I've shared on my show that I took up sailing,
Mhm.
something I've always wanted to do.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's a means of support. When I'm in the water, I feel good.
Mhm.
Swimming, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
What is it in your life that brings wholeness? A good conversation, a good cup of coffee.
Mhm.
As long as it's
Yeah,
good, as long as it's healthy. Yes.
it right. I understand that, and it to what comes to mind is being able to get to that point.
Yes.
Now being able to even have the clarity of mind to think about what that might be. You know, and it for me it comes to mind about getting a good therapist, or when you hit that point where that hope is not there anymore. What is it that will have you support you in getting to your next level? And so when we talk about the medication and the therapy, um, I guess what comes to mind for me is that the way. I mean, it's one of the ways. And what I hear
Right.
you saying is that there are other ways. So will we become a society of everybody is on meds for their mental wellness, right? Will we
Mhm.
become, you know what I mean? Just in thinking about it from that perspective. So when we talk about COVID, right, and the pre-COVID and where we were, and now all of us have been through, even the
Yeah.
most of us that have felt so clear and felt like things are good,
Yeah.
the anxiety levels are there. I mean, and so you have
Yeah.
so many more people facing feelings of maybe despair or feelings of not having clarity and all the uncertainty. So then we don't want all of us to be on meds, or, you know what I'm saying? So the idea is, how do we support mental wellness in all ways? And I am so for meds, I'm for therapy, I'm for all of
Mhm.
it, right? But the presentation of it all is one of the things that, it's just been coming up for me. And just the awareness that seek the help. Where's the help that's out there? And you named a few things. I like you said there
Well,
are
sometimes
organizations.
the help, Reverend G, is come. Can you just text a friend?
Yeah, that's some help. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
medium that we're on now,
Hmm.
online,
Hmm.
social media,
Hmm.
um, Social media is tricky though sometimes too, I must point out,
Mhm.
because it can cause depression and anxiety as well, the overuses of it.
Right. Yeah.
So we ain't talking about you staying on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter 24 hours a day.
Mhm.
It's not about that. But what other tools can you use? Um, Social media or use Facebook for. There's
Mhm.
a lot of support groups
Mhm.
on you may find online.
Yep, that's true.
There's a
Mhm.
reading group you may find online. You know, there's a book club you may find online. A women's group, a men's group
Mhm.
you may find online.
Mhm. Yeah,
How
that.
can we use that to our good? You can pick up the phone. You know,
Mhm.
you can text somebody, which I did a lot.
Mhm. The
But the
idea of being
times I didn't feel like talking, I would text.
mhm. Just being able to reach out to
Yes,
somebody, or even having somebody to reach out to, is
yes.
also quite important. I generally talk about what your life looked like prior to COVID and as we've gone through
Yeah.
it, and what your expectations are as we move forward.
Mm.
Mhm.
As
So I
we
can
move
think back
forward.
2 years ago, right? I always say, right, that's been 2 years, right? And the impact. Yeah.
Well, as we move forward,
Hmm.
I was having this conversation with someone just yesterday about the look of normalcy. What does that look like?
Hmm.
You know, I was at a soccer game Saturday, soccer match Saturday at Yankee Stadium, and people were just walking around and talking like it was almost nothing going on to a point. They were eating, they were drinking, they were laughing with friends. Some wearing masks, some not. And I couldn't help but think, wow, look at this. It was cold too.
Hmm.
It was raining.
Hmm.
But going forward, it was almost like there was a craving for something normal again. What does
Hmm.
that look like? You
Hmm.
ask.
Hmm. Hmm.
Being able to do things maybe that you hadn't been able to do this past 2 years, like go to a sporting event, have a conversation in a coffee shop, have a cup of coffee in a coffee shop with your friends, with your family, going out to eat again
Hmm.
without a mask. Long as you have your shots and your boosters. What does that look like?
Yeah.
To take a walk, being able to take a walk outside, breathe the fresh air, being able to take a trip someplace that maybe you've been putting off.
Hmm.
Just go somewhere, do something that you've been craving,
Hmm.
something that you've been starving for, something that it doesn't have to be complicated, but something beauty in its simplicity,
Hmm.
like going to a game, like taking a walk in the park, going to a movie theater. I miss being in an actual movie theater,
Hmm.
you know, and I love movies. I
Hmm.
can watch movies almost all the time on TCM and all the other places, but actually being in a movie theater with some popcorn,
Hmm.
those
The
type of
things
things.
that bring you joy. It sounds like
The
finding
things that bring
those
me joy.
things that
Being able for
bring
me to go sailing this year.
you.
Yes,
Mm-hmm. Find something. I always talk about creating moments of joy because
yes,
we go through sad moments, happy
yes.
moments, and sometimes we go through just different emotions. But I'm always saying if we can create moments of joy, just moments of joy, and I talk about ways of doing that in terms of your spiritual practices. So I talk
Mm,
about the spiritual toolkit is one of the things
yes.
I talk about in the spiritual toolkit would be the spiritual practices that support you. And it's personal because we all have different ones that, for me, something that will bring me clarity may be different for
Mhm.
you. And so I am a big proponent of what's in your spiritual toolkit, right? Because I believe that when this, like everything that we're going through now,
Yeah. Yeah.
all of us are going through something, right? And we're
Yeah.
all coming out on
Yeah.
the other end feeling
Yeah.
one way or another, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
some of us are feeling better than others, and some of us have survived more. I've had more deaths in the past year than I can really count, right? And
Yes.
so
Yes.
I'm coming out of it too, right? On the other side. But I say, as I've gone through all of it, I look at, so what practices have supported me, right? As I've gone through many deaths and the sadness of it all.
Yeah.
And the one for me that's really been important for me is my thoughts, the thoughts that I keep, watching the thoughts that I keep. Is
Yes.
one of the practices that's been really supporting me. Um, then I have my normal meditation practices, my
Mhm.
and this time I've taken up art. Now I want to paint. So
Mhm. Yes.
brush
Yes.
and things just um to express creativity in one sense, and at the same time to find joy. I think that's everything we do, is to find a bit of happiness and a bit of joy throughout all of it. And when I was asking you the question about how we're going to come out on the other side, I know stronger and wiser, right? But
We hope. We hope so. We
I'm
hope sooner
counting,
and wiser. We hope so. But
I'm counting
that's
on.
not guaranteed. History has a tendency to repeat itself every once in a while. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Yes.
talk about what are some of your spiritual practice? Share with us the spiritual practices that work for you.
Ooh, that's interesting. When you asked me that earlier, I thought about that
Mhm.
because I came from a household where I came from a long line of church people. You know what I'm saying? I
Hmm.
grew up
Tell
in
us
church.
that story. Well, let's start there with the
Yeah, I grew
with
up in a long line of church people, a long line of.
the
Let me tell you, growing up in the Methodist church, my late mother, she was a deaconess. My
mm,
grandmother was a deaconess. My aunt was a deaconess. Cousins was a deaconess. I myself was not a deaconess. I was a Sunday school teacher.
oh,
Oh yeah, I was a Sunday school teacher. Some of y'all, my peers who listening to this now may say, "What?" Yes, I was a Sunday school teacher. Yes, I was a Sunday school superintendent. I
well,
sung in the choir. So I grew up. The church was like my second home.
mm,
Every Sunday for so many years, and it became more so as I face a lot of challenges as I get older. One being the illness and eventual passing of my mother.
mhm,
Uh, I think it was at that time I sought the Lord in a way that I had never sought Him. I
mhm,
dare say I made Him my personal Lord and Savior. I was all 19, 20 years old when my mother passed.
mhm,
And I had never, I thought about it, thinking about it, that it was a depression. I could not imagine life without my mother.
mm,
I could not imagine because she was that one person growing up that I remember who supported my creativity.
mhm,
I am what I am today online, I mean, with my show and with my creativity because of her.
mhm,
She's the one that used to recite poetry to me as I went to bed at night. She
mm,
read my short stories. So now the idea that I wasn't going to have my mother anymore at the tender age of 20, 19 or 20, who's going to read those short stories? Who's going to critique my poetry?
Mhm.
And the emptiness I felt when she passed away, I think that's something I think about even to this day, all these many years later. And then going forward, I had an aunt, my mother's oldest sister, who
Mhm.
stepped and became like a mother to me.
Mhm.
She's the one who saw me through my adulthood, saw me into my adulthood. And I lost her maybe about 12 years ago
Mhm.
at 90. She's the one that saw me, as I said, through all my stuff, relationship issues, boyfriend issues, crying over this, that, jobs, everything.
Mhm.
And then I lost her. And I had never known Reverend G. I had known depression and anxiety in my life, but I had never known loneliness.
Mm.
You know,
Mhm.
I had
Mhm.
never known loneliness until I lost her. And suddenly my world started spinning
Mhm.
because the two most important women in my life were gone, my mother and my aunt.
Now these were years apart, though, right? How many years apart? Because I wanted to step back. And when you were saying that when you lost your mother, you didn't know how you were going to get along, was that the beginning of the depression? You think, as you think back,
I think
is
I've
that,
always, it's interesting. I think I've always had depression.
oh, even from a younger child, you could say,
Yeah, I think
yeah, okay,
I've always dealt with depression. I didn't know the name of it, but I've
mm,
always felt
okay,
uh, a
you,
anxiety. I've always felt depressed.
okay, and you can
Uh,
remember back being
I
sad.
dare say I had. I dare say that as a young child, I had feelings of suicide.
Oh, okay, okay. So it's been an ongoing,
Yes,
ongoing. Okay.
and not that I really wanted to die. You understand? I just wanted this pain to go away. And
Hmm.
for me, my outlet was the arts.
Okay.
And I had a
Creative.
mother who supported that.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Mhm.
had a mother
Mhm.
who supported that.
Mhm.
My
Mhm.
father, to a less degree, he was a supporter in other ways.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
he taught me how to drive a car. But my mother was the one that put this love of words and language in me.
Mhm. You
You know,
publish. You said you're a writer. You publish poetry and books or anything.
yes.
Oh, tell us
Uh,
about your books and stuff.
well,
I'm going here and there, right? Right. We got to get back to this story, right? But I want to talk about that. But let's make the circle because I do have a thought here about how
yeah,
at this point, so we're up to the point where you were talking about losing the second most important person in your life, and then how this loneliness set in. And with this
yeah,
loneliness that set in at that point, that's when you realized, and that's when you went to your lowest point of depression and actually
yes.
started to realize that you were depressed. And did you seek help at this point, or did it take something more for you to eventually reach out and say, please, seek help?
I was seeking help before then.
Oh,
I
okay.
had a therapist. I was seeking help even before my aunt passed away
Okay. Okay.
because I was in a toxic environment. I was working a job at the time that I actually hated.
Mm,
Toxic
mm,
environment. And I'm sure I'm not alone in people who have been in these, whether it's a relationship, a work environment.
mhm,
It's just, I just, I just internalized so much of,
mm,
the
mhm,
poison that was going on where I was at that time.
mhm,
And the only thing I could do was just cry and seek help
mm,
because I just needed to talk to somebody. And I was seeing a therapist,
mhm,
helped me a great deal. Then I
mm,
lost my job. and I
Okay.
lost my and I lost my insurance. These
Oh.
are really practical stuff.
Mhm.
Then I
Mhm.
had to seek out, so I could not afford to go to my therapist anymore because I didn't have the insurance that would pay for it. So now I'm left here on an island trying to figure out what I'm going to do. That's when I made the initiative because I needed something to
Mhm.
find a support group somewhere.
Okay. Okay.
And that led to finding support groups like NAMI, Metro, and Goodwill Industries,
Mhm.
where I learned about peer support for the first time.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that was a changing that was a defining moment, tell you the truth. That
Mhm.
was the defining moment in my life as far as mental wellness was concerned.
Mhm.
Now, but
Mhm.
I want you to know that there were good times in the midst of this. I was artistically active. You know,
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
photographing, I was writing, I was I was doing a lot of things that were really fun to me, were
Mhm.
helping me emotionally.
Mhm.
So this that those were
You were
my
using
wellness kit.
your
But
creative
then you go to a toxic environment, yeah.
side. Mhm. Mhm. Wow. Yeah.
So but here I am in the midst of it. That's what peer support is about.
Okay.
These are the stories that you share as peer specialists, as peer counselors.
Mhm.
I know what it is to be in this type of environment. Let me tell you,
Mhm.
I know what it is to be on a job and go into the bathroom because you just need to get away and just cry for a while.
Mhm.
I know how it is to just cry, laugh when you want to cry. Try to put on a mask. We all put on masks, Reverend G, but just to
Mhm.
put on a mask that we had to go out to every day to
Mhm.
perform.
Mhm.
But in the midst of it, when I get home at night, I'm crying. When I get home at night, I'm just like exhausted emotionally and mentally and physically.
Mhm.
So this is what helped me.
Mhm.
This is why I go to therapy. This is why for me, I took medication.
Mhm.
This is for me why I sought other supports, good supports.
Mhm. Mhm.
Picked up the writing more. I pick up my art more,
Mhm.
uh, photographing more.
Mhm.
I formed friendships more. And that's what peer support is about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what I like was that it sounds that you got the support all around.
Well,
Support.
I was determined, yes.
Yes, where you were able to get a psychiatrist to help to assess the need
Yes.
for medication. And then were you able to get the right medication? Because I know people who go through rounds of not, and like we say, what's the right mix?
Yes.
What's the right cocktail? So there's so many layers to it and so many levels to what really works, right? And so being able to get the support is really important to get to the right person who can make sure you have the right meds that work for you, to get to the right person that will have you talk about some of the things that you're holding on to, talk about the
Yes.
things that are burdening you that you still have
Yes.
holding on to.
Yes.
Say, if you are lonely, then how do we support you in not being lonely? You know what I mean? What practical things to support a person to get through whatever their barriers are or whatever they're going through, I guess I would say more than anything. And it feels like it just takes a whole team of people to have this work out.
It takes a village. I mean, that may sound cliche-ish, but it takes a village. And what's your village? That's your support system.
Mhm.
It takes that good friend or that family member. It takes finding new supports, new friends, new interests in your life.
Mhm. Yeah, it
Well,
just making those
I
different
was
moves.
down and determined because I just needed. I the loneliness was just killing me.
Mm.
loneliness, and I
So let's
needed
talk
just
about the
I
loneliness from
needed
you
to
have
have my space.
did you have no friends? Did you get married, have kids and all of that and friends? So when the loneliness hit, where were you in your life? Because it's like,
Mm.
you know what I'm saying? Did you not have anybody around except your one aunt that
I mean, I had family here and there. I had
Mhm.
friends. I
Mhm.
mean, I wasn't married. I wasn't
Mhm.
in any relationship. I wasn't anybody's mother,
Mhm. Okay.
which maybe contributed a lot to my depression
Okay.
because because I must say when I thought about it over the years,
Mhm.
so much is put on marriage
Yeah.
and bearing kids
Yeah.
as if it's our, particularly as women,
Mhm.
as if that is our primary job,
Mhm.
primary occupation, primary
Or like
reason
if
for life.
you don't do that, something is not quite. You're not
Yes, yes,
following right.
indeed.
What?
And if
What?
you don't do that, something must be wrong with you.
Right. 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 Right.
How dare you say that, oh my God, you want to pursue other things, a career maybe, you want to go to school. For me, it was always, I was, also, Reverend G, I also realized that I was kind of selfish.
Mm. Mhm.
When you have a child, it's not about you anymore.
That's true for sure.
You know,
Mhm.
and it was so many things that I wanted to do. I did not have the support system I felt around me.
Mhm. Mhm.
I wasn't particularly crazy about being the idea of being a single mother.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, I was living with my aunt. Yes, she could have helped me. My aunt and uncle, yes, they could have helped me,
Mhm.
but they were already taking care of their grandkids.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I did not want to bring another child. I wasn't in a stable relationship with some guy who, yes, I know he's going to do right by me and my.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So, so be that as it may. And plus, I also realized that there's things I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I wanted to go to film school, which I did. I
Okay.
wanted, I wanted to go travel to Paris and study photography, which I did.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
didn't have, when I did these things, I wanted to go into the military for a while, which I did.
Okay. Mhm. Mhm.
And I realized in doing these things, there was, I, I didn't have to think about childcare. Who's going to be minding my kid while I'm out in this world doing that?
Mm.
So I went off to Paris and studied photography.
Mhm.
I studied film
Mhm.
at NYU,
Mhm.
uh, finished that program this many years ago, and came to Channel 13, PBS.
Mhm.
Started off as an intern, and
Okay.
then went to work for Bill Miles, the black filmmaker, the black documentary filmmaker,
Mhm.
who got me into photography, who got me into photo research and film research,
Mhm.
who got me into traveling and got because of my military experience,
Mhm.
introduced me to other blacks who were in the military, had been in the military, the 369th, the
Mhm.
All Black Regiment
Mhm.
of World War II.
Mhm.
So all of these experiences I had because I dare say I had the freedom to do it.
Mhm.
And I knew being a mother. I mean, I think about it today, but back then, Reverend J,
Mhm.
being a mother, that's responsibility that I just wasn't ready for.
Yeah, and not everybody has to be a
Thank
mother.
you.
You have to choose. You chose the life that you
Well,
chose.
believe you me,
Yeah.
Reverend, I've been a mother to so many other people. I got nieces and nephews and all these, what I'm saying?
Mhm.
I got my sister's kids, you know.
Mhm.
Uh, so
Yeah,
it's,
it's
I've been a
interesting
mother in
too
so
because
many other ways, and
yeah.
I have to realize sometimes when I get sad and when I get a certain way,
Mhm.
that Cynthia, your life has made a difference.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's
Mhm.
something I struggle with to this day is like, how has my life been impactful?
Mhm.
How has my life made, and I struggle even to the day with the show, with everything,
Mhm.
going back to school, all these things I've done. I still struggle sometimes with, has my life made a difference?
Mhm.
So then that's when I gotta start turning, redirecting. We talk about that in peer support.
Mhm.
When
Mhm.
you start to feel sorry for yourself because of this
Mhm.
or that, the other.
Mhm.
Well, Cynthia, what have you done?
Mhm. Mhm.
Please,
Mhm.
the impact you have made.
Mhm.
What things
Mhm.
that you have done?
Mhm. Mhm.
The kind words that just, and when I think about in those terms, it's like, wow.
Mhm.
You talking
As
about
you talk
spirituality?
about,
That has been,
yeah, as you talk about this whole lifetime, recognizing this whole life of depression, or from as the more as you've done so many great things also, right? At
yeah,
the same
yeah.
time, just through working through all of that, right? And what would you say has been the driving force for you, though? When you think about it, when the moments that you like maybe hit the wall, or the moments that you are feeling the least amount of hope, you know, what ways have supported you in moving forward?
Well, I'm a visual person. I guess that's the photographer in me.
Okay.
And I love. This may sound corny,
Mm-hmm.
but I love how the sun feels on you in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I love how the I love when you open up your blinds or you walk outside for the first time on a nice beautiful day and the sun just hits you just so, or the air or the breeze hits you just so.
Mm-hmm.
You may have had a rough night, but then I get up, I have that cup of coffee, which is something.
Mm-hmm.
Have that wonderful shower, which is something.
Mm-hmm.
You may put on some music in the morning, something to get you going, which is something. And then the visual, all of that sun,
Mm-hmm.
that sky, that blue sky.
It
It's
sounds like
talking
gratitude.
about those days, the
Mm-hmm.
coping skills we talk about, and you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about part of your supports,
Mm-hmm.
just the expectation of
Mm-hmm.
it. I
Mm-hmm.
walk out and I see something maybe I haven't seen before, or
Mm-hmm.
it's new to me that day.
Mm-hmm.
Reverend G, I talked about on my show one day. I was on my way to work and I was at the bus stop, and there's like this like post, this little sign, like direction sign, right next to the bus stop, and I
Mm-hmm.
saw this formation of birds land on it. And in the natural, that may not seem like much.
Mm-hmm.
It was the sparrows. And they were landing in formation on this signpost,
Mm-hmm.
as if guided to do so by some spiritual something, but as if guided something they've been doing all for thousands of years. But that morning, it looked so beautiful to me.
Mm-hmm.
Something
Mm-hmm.
so simple. It looks so beautiful. It's like, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever I was feeling, however low I was feeling, I just, for something that caught my eye.
Mm-hmm.
Look at how the birds are singing on that signpost.
Mm-hmm.
Look how beautiful in formation they are. They look like, I dare say, soldiers in formation.
Mm, mhm.
Look
Sounded
how,
like that. To me, it
and
sounds
it's
like,
like these little things, you know what I'm saying? You
yeah,
talking about
sounds
when,
like
what
that.
makes
Like,
you feel?
getting present in the moment. That's what I wanted to say.
Indeed,
Because
indeed,
everything you're
indeed.
talking about for me felt like being in the moment, in the present. You walk outside. If you could feel the breeze and be in that moment, you're in that moment,
Ooh,
present to what's happening right now. Feeling the sun is about being present because we could just be out there and not necessarily even recognize that the sun is shining
yes.
because we are present to what's happening in the moment. So I love that idea about being present to what's happening now. As we've been talking about, mental health and
Yes.
practices that support all of that, um,
Yeah.
one thing that is important that I think about is what about self-love, right?
Mm,
And when we talk about mental health and mental wellness, I like that way of saying it,
mm,
right? Mental wellness around
mm,
um how much do we love ourselves, how much do we
mm.
care about ourselves, and from that space I think we'll even seek more help, in feeling and getting to the point where we love ourselves. And
I think
um,
so. Yes,
go ahead.
I think so. For me, I find love, self love, as you put it,
Mhm,
just in these everyday things that we they take for granted.
mhm,
Being in the moment,
mhm,
you know, the, the breeze, the sunlight,
mhm,
how beautiful the stars look at night on a clear summer's day.
mhm.
I'm a stargazer. I'm such a nerd.
Mm, mhm,
You know,
mhm,
I'm such a stargazer. I love how the stars twinkle at night. I love how the moon glistens at night. Well, they don't glisten. I love the brightness of the moon.
mhm.
I'm
Yeah.
one to text. I'm one to text a friend, and I'll ask them, "Wow, did you see how beautiful the moon looks tonight?"
Mm. Is your
You know,
photography what kind of photography do you do? Is it people? Is it objects? What's your specialty?
well, I started off as a fine art photographer. Then I got into journalism, photojournalism.
Mm,
I used to photograph for a couple black newspapers,
mm-hmm.
one called The Beacon,
Okay, I know.
and one in North Carolina called
Mm-hmm.
The Caribbean.
Oh, okay.
I
Mm-hmm.
used to be a photographer for a civil rights organization called the National Action Network.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I was one of the founders of the Photo Club where I got the photograph. That was some of the best years of my life. I tell you, Reverend G, being on the forefront of some of the leading civil rights and human rights events in this city,
Mm-hmm.
from Amadou Diallo, from Patrick Dorisman. I got to meet and photograph the mother of Emmett Till, Mamie Till.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, these were monumental things. I remember when, my God, Winnie Mandela came to town.
Mm,
You
mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
so it was just a joy. I mean, and I felt like I was part of something greater. Felt I was really my life was I was impacting something.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you talk about that, and then the latest movement, right? Where were
Yes.
you, and what impact did you make during this latest uh, movement towards equality?
Well, you talking about Black Lives Matter?
Yeah, Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
Oh,
It's really how after 400 years we got to let people know that our Black lives still matter.
oh, okay.
After 400 years, I was doing my show. I
Mm,
was
okay.
doing my show, and like so many of us, I was watching George Floyd be killed in front of us,
Mm,
crying out to his mother,
mm-hmm.
But I was doing my show. I was doing peer work.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, I was doing peer work.
Hmm. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, it is interesting when we think about, as you said, it summed it up for me when you see us still after all this time, we're still
Yeah.
fighting for the same thing. That kind of summed it all up for me. One of the things we're gonna, I really wanted you to kind of, if you could walk through just a couple of steps that you would suggest to people, because what we're talking about is taking, the breaking down the barriers, taking the stigma out of mental wellness, right? And I want us to be able to share, for you to be able to share, some of the steps or some of the first things. How will you advise people as we try to break down these barriers?
Well, I want you to know that you're not alone.
Okay. Hmm.
I want people to know that there's hope out there. And it's not a weakness to ask for it. There's help, whether it's in a support group, there's help, whether it's in one on one therapy. So there are people out there who are willing and able to support you for the good. And you're not alone. That's what I want people to know. That's what I want my fellow peers to know.
Hmm.
There's 24/7 support lines out
Hmm.
there
Hmm.
that you can reach out to. I worked on one for 3 years overnight, Rev G.
Mm.
NYC, wow, overnight. Oh my God, the stories I can tell you.
Mhm.
I took calls and chats from all over the world.
Mhm.
So you're not alone.
Mhm.
We're all going through something, but you're not alone. And there's support, and it's just a matter of reaching out. You
That's
can
it.
text, you can call. Yes.
Support is there, but it's just a matter of just taking that step and reaching out for the support and knowing
Yeah.
that
And
it's
that's a
there.
step. That's the first step, but it's an important step, and it's
Mhm.
a sign of strength. It doesn't mean that you're weak.
Mhm.
We all need someone and something.
Mhm.
We can't go through this life by ourselves. We're not alone, we all need supports. We all need each other.
Mhm.
You
Mhm.
know, uh,
Yeah. I
but
think
we
that's
also got to
important.
recognize who are not good for you and what's not good for you. That's also. But you learn that as you go along.
Mhm. Yeah, and I love the idea of the peer.
Peer counselors.
Yes, the peer counselor.
Oh.
That's really,
Well,
that was
stay
something new.
on the
I mean,
show, mental health and you. Yes, and we'll learn more. We can
yeah.
learn together.
Now, when you, I mean, I saw one of your shows was about the game. What game is that? The game
It's
you
called
have.
mental health board games.
So, what is
Uh,
talk about that? Because I thought that people learn in different ways and they do different things. What are the mental health board games about?
well, my guests that day, Leslie Robinson and Cecilia Brown, particularly Leslie Robinson, she is the designer and the architect of a game company called Transformations.
Mm,
Transformation games. These are games designed with a mental health theme
mhm,
to help create empathy and compassion among different people. So it's like playing Scrabble or playing Monopoly, but it had mental health themes. So
oh,
there's a game, say, for veterans,
mhm,
people coming back from wars. There's a game for maybe people who have been in gangs in the street, people who have been incarcerated.
mhm.
There's games geared towards called Keep It Real 100, where I talk about geared towards young people, how they can talk about depression, how they can talk about anxiety and not feel judged.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, it's a entry, it's a doorway into helping create some better understanding between different people. There's a game for people in law enforcement.
Mm.
How can we create dialogue?
Okay. Okay.
So different stages and different populations, mental health board games. Yes, indeed. So
Mm-hmm.
it's basically as I says, it's a games, board games with mental health themes geared towards different populations and different stresses people may be going to, or trying to create conversation
Mm-hmm.
in a safe environment, in a non-judging environment.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
good for
Great.
schools. It's good for faith-based operations. It's good for community centers,
Mm-hmm.
hospitals, after-school centers.
Oh, okay. That's really, really good.
Yes.
I love that, and I'd like to know more about that. That's
Well,
another
yes,
way
absolutely.
when we can just introduce the whole idea of mental health in as many ways as we can, and as many ways as we can get these conversations going, because that's what I think it's really about. Also, it's being able to have the conversations, being able to find a safe space person, or where you can have the real conversations, and knowing that the support is there for you to help you, you know.
And before we leave, Reverend G, I also did a show about mental health, religion, and the family.
Oh, okay. Tell us a little bit about that. We have
You
some
know,
few minutes
just
left.
the dynamics of it. Before we leave, just the dynamics of how does mental wellness and religion coexist? Because oftentimes, we grow up in an environment. Those of us who grew up in religion, grew up in religious households, and grew up in churches,
Mm-hmm.
feel many times that going seeking help outside the church, when maybe you may feel that, well, all you I need is God. In my case, I tell people I need God and I need therapy.
Okay.
God
Okay,
and need
that's
therapy.
good. Right. And I understand what you're saying.
And
Based.
recognizing that the pastor is not always the right one. He may not be, or she may not be always be qualified to help you in a way that maybe you need help. You know?
Yeah.
And that growing up in certain households, how is that? Where's the conflict of that? How do we reconcile that?
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
know, I have clients who come from different environments where mental health is seen as sort of like a curse.
Mm-hmm.
They come from religious environment, cultural environments.
Mm-hmm.
How do we reconcile the two?
Mm-hmm.
The cultural environment may be a deep faith, a church, a religion
Mm-hmm.
that's that will tell you that discourages any help outside of the church. All you
And
got to do is pray on it. So
yeah.
so be that as it may, that was the basis of a lot of the conversation I had with my guests that day, and we're going to do more about that because I think it's really relevant. It's
Mm-hmm.
always relevant how we bring mental health and religion, mental health and spirituality.
Together. Right.
Yes,
Exactly. Exactly.
yes, because we
Yeah.
got to take the stigma out of it in communities of color.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes,
And
yes,
you brought up a really interesting point, because I'm thinking about it, and the church in communities color is the leader. It's pretty
yes.
big in the community. Within the church is huge, has a huge influence, I would say, in communities, right?
It always has. From the days when we first got here, from slave, it's our refuge. It's where we had
Exactly.
our community meetings. It's where we stowed away to Jesus. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? We
Yeah.
did everything. We had everything in the church. It was our second home.
Exactly. And so
Now,
now they have to shift too, for those, and it has to be within the church where we can get some leverage too, by saying, please encourage people from the pulpit to seek mental health. Please have these mental health services available at the church. Please talk about it a lot. Make it open for the people to know. And I understand the whole part where you say pray about it. That's one part of it. You could
Yes.
pray about it, but then what are you hearing you should do about it after all the
Yes.
prayer, right?
Right. Pray now what?
Yeah, exactly.
Pray.
So I get the
Pray.
prayer part.
Yes.
Yeah. But at the same time, what kind of actions are you going to take, right,
Yes.
to support yourself in moving forward? So it is, I think the
Yes.
church is a big place where we could start, where promoting the whole idea of seeking mental services and mental health.
And it's just about putting your faith in action, as we say.
Yes.
Putting your faith in action. What does that look like?
Yes,
Go
exactly.
and get help for yourself. Go
Yeah.
and get help for your loved one.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. So I am so excited that you joined us today and all the
Thank
things
you.
that we learned. I'm excited about this peer counselor thing, right?
Oh yes.
And all the work that you're
We're
doing.
always talking about it. Well, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining me, and we'll definitely be in touch and continue this conversation.
Oh, I look forward to it. Thank you for having me, Reverend G. Thank you so much.
All
Thank you
right.
so much. Mental Health and You, y'all, on
Yep.
BronxNet.
Yep.
First Thursday of every month.
The
And on YouTube.
first Thursday. What time
Anytime.
is that? I mean, it's live, and then we can catch it
Oh, Mental
later.
Health and You, we tape it. We
Oh,
tape it.
okay.
It's
And
taped. And then it's shown on the first Thursday of each month on BronxNet,
okay,
6:30 Eastern Standard Time. But
okay.
then after that, it goes into my YouTube channel where you can find it anytime.
All right. Well, thank you so much. We'll look for that, Cynthia.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for joining me.
Well, thank you for having me.
Okay. Bye.
Peace and blessings. Bye bye.
Thank you for joining me tonight on Conversations with Reverend G. I'm here every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. live on WEMS Radio. You can find me every day on Facebook as Reverend Grenetta Mason and on Instagram as Rev Grenetta. I leave you tonight with take care of your mental wellness and live your best life with grace and ease. Have a good week.